Look at it.
Thank you for hanging in there with us. This next song is the title song of our record, and it is called Ballyhoo. Now you might wonder what a ballyhoo is, or you might think you know what a ballyhoo is, and you might know what it is, but for our purposes, a ballyhoo was what was done out in the old western towns in the U.S. in order to get people to come out and see the freaks in the carnival show. The sort of ringmaster, whatever you would call him, would come out and he would go into town and he'd, try and control them all in to come see the show and pay dime. And he made a big noise, and that was called a ballyhoo. And so I am now going to make a ballyhoo for you.
Yeah, New York Knicks. Yeah, that's your owner. That's your owner, James Dolan. That hat probably costs more than our houses with his cornball head ass. That nigga is a cornball, but that is who represents the New York Knicks. Alright, so the point guard, Stephon Marbury, definitely represented New York. Came out of Coney Island. Lincoln High School, was the leading scorer in high school for New York. He ended up going to New York after he was in Phoenix, I believe. He was drafted to Minnesota, traded to Phoenix. Then from Phoenix, he went to New York. And from New York, he was balling. He was balling out. This was the era of Isaiah Thomas being the GM. He was 6'3", 190. He can go to the rim. He had handles. My boy had lots of handles. And he was a solid point guard for a long time. Has a lot of championships in China right now. Allen Houston, the shooter. Played for the Knicks. Can dribble. He can dribble a little bit. He's 6'6". He can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot the three. And there's nothing you can do about it. Hand down, man down. Allen Houston is a legend in New York. Very, very well accepted. He's as close to a street ball legend as you can get, because pretty much every legend in New York is a street ball legend like Stephon Marbury. But he wasn't a street ball legend. He's just more of those guys that were really solid for New York. They never booed Allen Houston. Glenn Robinson. Big dog Glenn Rob. Got you a flea. The little homie jungle is a garden to me. The big dog Glenn Robinson. 6'8", 230. Can get to the rim. Can dribble. Shoot the mid-range. He can play make. He can rebound. Plays a little bit of defense. My guy Glenn Robb did everything. That's why they called him the big dog. Dunk on you. He can shoot the clutch shot. I mean, he's done some things in the NBA that really bigger guys really haven't done yet. At the time, he was more like a Paul Pierce, but a little bit more athletic. Anthony Davis. Currently playing for the Lakers. He's currently in the NBA. He has a championship. He's one of the reasons the Lakers had a championship. They couldn't go to the finals until they traded for Anthony Davis, and then they became contenders. He's 6'10". That's what the list says. I believe he's like 6'11", low key. 240. He can jump. He can dribble. Not as good as Carl Anthony, but he's there. He's almost there. He can shoot the three. He can shoot the mid-range. He can post up. He can contend to be the defensive player of the year with his blocks and steals. He's almost unstoppable when he gets to the paint. He's only like 6'10", 6'11", but he plays like he's 7'5". And that's not even a bad thing because he can shoot very well. So the only bad thing about Anthony Davis is that when he falls, you think he might be injured. Just how fragile he is. But that's why I say he plays like he's 7'5". But when he's healthy, he's championship worthy. Patrick Ewing. Okay, so James Dolan might represent the Knicks as the owner, the billionaire owner, but when it comes to Knicks fans, Patrick Ewing is synonymous with the Knicks. When you think Patrick Ewing, you think the Knicks. If you're old enough as a fan, if you think the Knicks, you probably think Patrick Ewing. Been to the finals. He doesn't have a ring, but he's been to the finals multiple times. He didn't necessarily retire with the Knicks, but he might as well have. It was more like a Brett Favre thing towards the end of his season. Towards the end of his career, excuse me. He can block. He's 7'1". He's 240. Went to Georgetown. Shout out to the DMV. Can dunk. Has a good mid-range. Good post moves. Very legendary post moves. Back when post moves mattered. He mattered because post moves mattered. Very physical. Wasn't afraid to block a dunk. He had very, very low key, 1, athleticism, and 2, 3-point skills. He didn't shoot that many threes because they didn't allow him, but I feel like he could have. Mark Jackson, straight out of New York. My man is a street baller. If you watch them play, you can kind of tell, there's something about New York people that you can tell are just different. But then on top of that, on the basketball court, there's something about a New York basketball player you can tell. Usually they're guards. Of course they're guards. But Mark Jackson played for the Knicks at some point, so he played for his hometown. And he's just one of those legends. One of those legends in New York that, he brought that street ball game to the NBA. There are a few people doing that. Rayford Alston and Steve Francis and Baron Davis. And you can name a few people. Mark Jackson was one of those people, but he was old enough to even play with Patrick Ewing. Ended up playing in the 2000s with Reggie Miller also. He's been on a few teams. But either way, Mark Jackson performs either way. He's also a pretty good coach. He started the Warriors before they handed the keys to Steve Kerr. But he set that base up so Steve Kerr can succeed. It's a pretty smart guy. TJ Warren, best known from the bubble of exploding in the bubble. But me personally, as a fantasy basketball player / owner, whatever you want to call it, he's always been just this explosive guy off the bench that can just end up scoring 28 at a random game. He's not as consistent as you want him to be, but like I said, as a fantasy owner, you kind of want him on the bench just in case he wants to go crazy. And in the bubble, he was going crazy. 6'8", 220, can dribble, obviously can shoot. He can go to the rim. He can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot the three. His playmaking is okay. His passing is pretty average. But one thing he's grew into as a player, because this wasn't him when he was drafted, was scoring. Gary Trent Jr., 6'5", play the 2, play the 3. Enes Freedom. His name is Freedom now because he has freedom from the country that he was almost sent back to. But he's an okay center, 6'11". Maurice Spates, 6'10", has range, can shoot the 3, mid-range, low post moves. Donald Foyle, more of an old school center, 6'10", can rebound and block. Josh Richardson, he's a guard, can play the 3, can play the 2, can shoot the 3, can get the 2. Trey Burke, one time impersonated Allen Iverson, 6 foot, can dribble. All right, so we got Rick Carlisle and Maurice Cheeks as the coach and head coach, assistant coach and head coach. Strengths, mid-range scoring, 3-point scoring, layups, and strength. And weaknesses, perimeter defense, steals, ball handling, and dunks. They pretty much scouted this one. Some of the other teams only had like 1 or 2 strengths and maybe 3 weaknesses, but they pretty much scouted this one down. That strength is going to be is definitely going to be one of those things. They have some pretty big front court guys that's not going to be pushed around.